Welcome everybody. Come on into team meeting. Today it's my honor and pleasure to get you to know the famous Eric Sundby, who was a student at Georgia State University and one of my former students. But thank you, Eric, for taking the time to visit with us and share your wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah, anytime.
Okay.
Glad to be here.
So we start with the most hard-hitting question is, what was your favorite pregame meal?
Oh gosh, I'm a bad person to ask because I eat for I would say purpose, not pleasure.
Uh-huh.
Pretty much what was ever in front of me. I was a big Waffle House guy. I know walking to lift weights in the morning, the ladies at Waffle House would always hook us up with a couple biscuits. So that was always my go-to when I could afford it.
Nice. I know where you were. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so tell us what you're doing now, and kind of your responsibilities and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah. So I came from a consulting background where I was kind of a nerd, for lack of a better term, and I did that on purpose, right? So I got very, very technical at first, hands on the keyboard, coding nonstop. I was doing a lot of data integration at first, and then I sort of graduated to more advanced analytics where I was doing data science, predictive models, stuff like that. But basically, the business would ask a question or a series of questions, and through the investigation of data, we would be able to answer those questions. So that's where I started. I did that for about 8 or 9 years, and so now I'm what they call a sales engineer. Basically, it's kind of consultative selling. So you kind of bring your consulting background and knowledge, also the technical expertise. You marry those two together by understanding the software that you're selling, which in this case, well, I won't say the name, but it's some data integration software. We come in, or I come in, and I say, okay, here, what's your problem? Here's how the software can help you solve that problem, essentially. So I'm
Okay.
like a pseudo salesperson, so to speak, on the
Uh,
technical side.
it sounds like rather important. What would you say is your brand? What is your brand doing this? Doing this, not your personal life, not all that, but just doing this.
Yeah, so I always wanted to. At least initially, I started out trying to be the smartest person in the room, which you could argue was right or wrong, but that's initially what I started doing. And the reason why I did that is because I felt like I had the personable side down naturally. I
Hmm.
wanted to basically double down on what I wasn't good at naturally, but I thought could bring value. And I looked at the marketplace and I said, well, a lot of people who are technical typically don't have those traits naturally, being personable and those things. And I talked to some other people, interviewed a lot of people actually before I decided to go this route. While I was in college, just found people on LinkedIn
Okay.
who worked for consulting firms and just asked for 30 minutes of their time, and they were pretty receptive of that. And that was probably one of the most valuable things I did in terms of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, was interview those people, kind of get their perspective. And that seemed to be a common reoccurring theme from what I heard is, hey, if you can just get this technical stuff down, and you're personable and likable and all those things, you marry those two together, and that's kind of it's really valuable. So that was my brand early on, and now I'm basically that is what I'd like to be known as, is someone who is easy to talk to, is likable, can explain things in something very complex, but explain it in simple terms so everyone understands. And so that's what I try to be now.
So how do you think football helped you with that?
Oh gosh. Well, I'll tell you what. Being a walk-on and not being on scholarship, at least initially, having to pay my way through school, and basically just be broke, right? So I was working nonstop, like various jobs, server, what have you, and then trying to be good at school at the same time, plus the football. That was a ton of stress and work and all those things. So I would say that the hard work aspect, number one, but also perspective, I think, is everything. So when I got into consulting, which most people consider to be a very cutthroat industry, you work nonstop, that sort of thing,
Right.
it seemed very easy to me.
Because you've been trained.
Yeah, when everyone else was complaining about it, I'm like, I'm just glad I don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. to lift on top of this. So um,
Oh,
I
that's
would say
brilliant.
perspective, yeah, was pretty important.
That was- that's This is brilliant. Yeah. Okay. What do you, if you look back at what football taught you, what is there some, you kind of answered part of this, but
Mhm.
is there some context of football or teams or student athlete that you use every week now?
It's a good question. Let me think on that for a minute. So I would say working in teams is obviously imperative to any business, right?
Mhm.
Early on, when I was a consultant, a lot of my work was project based, and a lot of those projects were kind of I was kind of siloed. Hey, do X, Y, and Z, get
Right.
it done, bill the hours, and be done with it. As I matured in my career, that evolved more into a management role, and then from
Right.
there it was purely management until I got to what I'm doing now. So I would say from a management perspective, absolutely. There were things like I think camaraderie is a really I would say imperative part of any team, right? And I think
Right.
the more camaraderie you have, and this is usually built through, at least from what I've experienced, through tough times, right? So we all
Mhm.
go to fall camp, we hate every second of it, but we're all going through it together, right? And
Right. Right.
I think when we were as a consultant, when I was in management, I was managing a lot of like new hires, fresh out of college. They were all very motivated, hardworking, smart, all the things. And I think that the more that we worked together, those late nights and all those things, we became stronger as a team.
Yeah.
And furthermore, we I think that helped build trust throughout the team as well. So if I were to ask someone, hey, can you take care of this? I know that it's getting done, right?
Right.
Things like that I think were important, and I think the same thing can be translated through football as well.
Did you hire any former student athletes?
Not that I'm aware of. No, a lot of them. Oh no, actually, there was one college wrestler from the University of Wisconsin. I mean, I didn't personally hire them,
Okay.
but they were put on my team, and yeah, so I would say one that I know of.
So, and throughout my other interviews, maybe you can answer this.
Mhm.
So many of my former student athletes have said, um, I didn't really tell anybody I was a student athlete. And I was
Yeah,
like, I would have thought that would have come up in cat. It's not like you're going to introduce yourself, but
right.
why do you think that's happening that they would never mention it? It's
That's
not
a
like, hey, I did this and I ran X number of yards or tackles in the first 15 minutes. That's not
yeah.
what I'm talking about. But it never comes up.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this is kind of industry specific, I would say. So I can only speak to my industry, and that was consulting. I never brought it up either, and it was on my resume somewhere, kind of like buried, tucked down
Yeah.
underneath. But at least in consulting, it was so competitive that was like the last thing they cared about. It was like,
Okay.
hey, what were your grades? What have you done from an internship perspective? What are you going to bring to the table? They want you to
Right.
be profitable on day one, right? It's all
Right.
about numbers.
Right.
And so I think that's one of those things where I don't know why, but it's just not something that they ask. I'm not going to speculate as to why. I just not one of the metrics that they probably look at for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really odd to me, but
Yeah.
whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you watch sports now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Tons.
All right. Who are you a big fan of?
So I would say I'm a Packers fan, but it's been really tough to be a Packers fan lately. I'm from
Yeah.
Wisconsin, so naturally I was kind of born into being a cheesehead. But it seems like we always have so much promise, and then we get to the playoffs and we mess it up. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. As a Bronco fan, been
yeah,
lean for a while now. Okay.
and then
All right.
obviously Florida State. I'll watch our football games all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say those two.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite away game that you played?
So actually, I didn't travel because I don't know if you knew about my story, but um, it was interesting. So I transferred from Kennesaw State.
Okay.
I had an offer from Georgia State out of high school. I didn't take it because I hurt my shoulder. Decided I didn't want to play. And then after about a year of being at Kennesaw, I realized I did want to play, but my shoulder just got fixed and I was down probably 40, 50 pounds of muscle. So I had to put that muscle back on. And then once I did, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of sick of being like a normal student. I want to go back to playing football. So I called up Georgia State. They said I could come on as a preferred walk-on. I did. And so I wasn't eligible. It's kind of a stupid rule that they've recently changed. And I'm glad they have changed it. But it used to be if you transferred from a Division I school, regardless of the fact that you did or did not play football. So if you did not play football or any other sport, you still had to take a year off of eligibility. Like, yeah. So I wasn't eligible to play when I transferred over. And so after the first year of my eligibility, me not being eligible, I was starting and was going to get playing time and that whole thing. And then I hurt my shoulder again in spring practice.
Dang.
It was really tough. And that was probably another thing that I learned from football. That, back to your previous question was, hard work doesn't guarantee success, right?
Right.
I worked so hard and gave up so much and sacrificed so much. And it just took one hit, boom, shoulder's gone. And that was it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. You just gotta pick yourself up and move on. And that was what I did. So yeah, I never was able to travel, unfortunately.
Oh man. So, but so many people who've played 4 years, traveled, played in all kinds of games, can't move past the end of eligibility, another injury. They just get stuck there. What do you think helped you say, well, I can't cry about it, I'm moving on? How do you think that helped you? Were there people that helped you? Were there what was it?
No, well, I think there was something. I think actually, I remember explicitly my high school coach, which I was not a fan of, but this is one thing that I think that he said, and it really stuck with me. It was after the season was over, he pulled us all in for a meeting, all the seniors, because there was a lot of internal problems with the coaching staff and stuff. And he said, all right, if you want to say something, we have a closed door meeting, get it off your chest. And one of the kids who, played all 4 years and worked really hard, said that. He's like, Coach, I worked really hard and, bottom line, I didn't get any playing time. And he said, you know what, like, I'm sorry, but like, best player is going to play and hard work doesn't guarantee success. And that stuck with me. And I was like, huh. And so I think that just was one of those things that just carried over throughout my life. And I was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of people who work really hard and they just don't make it. And it could be for, various reasons, right? But that's the bottom line. So I had a plan B, and I think that helped me, I guess, get through it. Of course, initially it was tough because I'm like, man, of course, right? But I was like, okay, shift gears, let's go. Now it's career time, and this is what we're gonna do. And so I basically like funneled all of that focus and energy and time that I had previously spent in football all towards school, all towards my career. And I became as competitive as I could be in the classroom. I was like, I'm gonna get the best grade in the class. Just some way, an outlet for all that energy that I previously had. Or time and effort. So that was kind of how I got over it, was just funneling that back into my career in school.
Wow. Well, I'm proud of you. I was then, I am now. Okay. All right. So why did you pick football?
Yeah, so I really didn't. It was kind of, just to be like very transparent with you, my dad from an early age kind of forced it on me. And I did not like it. I did like it. But I think it was like really when football started getting serious, like high school is when I started to hate it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And also I was a bit of a late bloomer. Everyone was hitting puberty before I was, and I'm still this little kid with, just no muscles or anything. And everyone's like got these big biceps. I'm like, I'm going to get killed. So that was a bit intimidating, especially our high school specifically. Like we had to go against the seniors all the time, but those guys, back when you're a freshman, I'm like, oh gosh, like
yeah,
they got veins in their biceps. I don't even have a bicep. So so that, I think that was like probably one of the reasons, if I'm being honest. And so I decided, my dad was like, okay, fine, you don't want to play football, you have to do something. And so I decided to pivot into wrestling. which I didn't realize probably was 10 times harder from a mental perspective, the
Oh,
cutting weight and
yeah.
all that stuff. But it toughened me up, and it gave me some time to, lift weights and kind of fill out. So by my sophomore year, end of sophomore year, the football coaches were like, all right, when are you going to play? When are you going to play? So finally I was like, all right, I'll play. So I went from being like, this little guy to, finally being able to like match up with some of the bigger guys. So yeah, I really didn't choose it, but it was funny because that 2 year period, I guess, that I took a break, so to speak, from football made me realize how much I missed it. So it was forced on me initially, and then I did miss it, and I made the decision to go back. And I think the reason why I love football so much is it's just the physicality portion. I was a very physical player. I love getting in there and being with the guys and just being physical.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can put it. It
Yeah.
was fun for me, and I still do miss that part, but I don't miss constantly being broken. My body was constantly a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah, I bet so. I bet so.
Yeah.
Oh my
So in high
God.
school, like the hits weren't as bad. Every once in a while you get a bad one, but man, college was a whole different level. I mean, every hit was just brutal. You wake up the next morning, my knees like wouldn't bend, and I'm like hobbling to class and taking ice baths 3 times a day. I don't know how those NFL guys do it.
Yeah.
They have something else that I'll never have. So, but yeah, I do miss that portion of it, and I think that's really what made me gravitate towards the sport of football was the camaraderie, the physicality, and it's just overall fun game.
Yeah. And the strategy of the physicality and
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
That's let's go back to practice.
sure.
Was there something that you were really good at practice? Were you planning ahead? Were you managing what happened to you? What would you say you're a planner, a manager, a problem solver? What do you what do you what do you
No,
think?
none of the above.
Okay.
And I probably should have been. I wasn't as probably as strategic as I would be today.
Okay.
My strategy was just to be really mean.
But you had a goal. You had a
Yeah,
goal.
I mean,
Okay.
you ask anyone who played with me, they would say the same thing. That was just, I don't know. I kind of I play pissed off, and that was always, I'd flip a switch once I got onto the field, first couple plays, and I'd just become a different person. I can't explain it, but that was, I guess, my strategy was just get in the zone, and it was almost like tunnel vision. Like I wouldn't see anything else. I wouldn't think of anything else. I'm like, okay, it was very black and white.
Yeah.
I've got a goal to accomplish here on this play. I'm going to go execute. Boom. Let's do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was my, I guess, my strategy.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Um, okay. So first and foremost, I probably would have tried a lot harder in high school. I think that once I started trying in school, it was a rude awakening because I'll never forget. I studied for some accounting class or some accounting test, and I was like, all right, I'm going to make this is like pretty close to when I hurt myself. I'm going to make an A on this test, right? I'm going to start making all A's.
Mhm.
And I studied so hard for that test, and I still got a B. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I don't understand. Like, I studied probably harder for this test than I've studied for any other test, and I still got a B. Like, what do I need to do to get an A? And multiply that test by 5. If you're taking 5 classes, that's a lot of studying, and I'm still
Right.
getting B's. Like, it's not
Right.
sustainable. So I had to reevaluate my strategy, and I was like, okay, obviously I'm doing something wrong. I don't think it's because I'm stupid. I think it's because
Right.
I've never done this before, and I don't understand how to study effectively and efficiently. So
Right.
then I basically opened up an Excel sheet, and I said, okay, here's how I'm studying. I'm taking notes, like writing out notes. I basically have like a short description of how I was studying in terms of strategy. So
Right.
that might be bullet points, outlining a chapter, whatever. And then I would also log my time. Okay, I spent this much time doing this much time doing this. And I do that for an entire test that I was studying for. And then I would basically look at my grade once I get it, and I'd say, okay, well, this wasn't effective. Let's change some things up. So I do that again for the next test. And throughout that, I was able to find a more efficient and effective way to study. And obviously, like throughout time, the more you do it, the better you
Right.
get at it, just naturally, without logging anything or tracking anything. And before I knew it, it got to the point where I was asking really good questions in class. So in real time studying, so to speak, right? And then also like understanding the right questions to ask, I think was important as well. And that just came through time of being in class. And so yeah, I would say that's probably one thing I would tell my 18-year-old self was, hey, instead of chasing girls and lifting weights and doing all the things that don't matter, like focus a little bit harder in school. And it's something it's something my dad always told me growing up, but being 18 or even 16 and thinking you know everything when you don't. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things I would tell myself when I was 18. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Hmm. Okay, well, another thing is a lot of the stuff you think that matters when you're younger really doesn't matter. Like being cool in school or doing like it really doesn't matter. And I think yeah. So there were a lot of things I spent a lot of time and energy on that just weren't worth it, I would say. So just
Yeah.
focus on the things that are worth it. But again, it's hindsight's 2020, right? So it's
Sure.
hard to tell an
Sure.
18-year-old that.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
those are the
Yeah.
two things that come to the top of my head.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are brilliant. I mean, this is just brilliant. Favorite coach?
Well, are you talking like at Georgia State?
Any place. High school, middle school, any
Yeah.
sport, or whatever.
Okay. I have two, if that's
Okay.
not cheating. Former high school coaches, Coach Hollis and Coach Foreman. One was the defensive coordinator, also the strength coach. That's Coach Foreman. Other coach, Coach Hollis, he was a defensive line coach,
Okay.
but also still a really good friend of mine, and definitely one of the best coaches ever been coached by.
And why is that?
So I think first of all, they talked me into playing football again. So that's first and foremost, right? Second, kind of a funny story. I tried quitting football, and going into my senior year. Funny story. I'm a big fisherman, and it was just right around spring practice. That's when all the bass were spawning
Sure.
in this lake. And my buddy goes, "Dude, I just caught this 11-pound bass." Showed me a picture of it, and he's like, "There's more of them. Let's go." I'm like, "I got practice." I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go quit." But anyway,
That's awesome. Okay.
so yeah, number one, I guess they got me into football. They kept me in it, and again, it's kind of like their style of coaching was trying to think of a better term here, but I can't really think of one. Just pretty hardcore, right? It made me tough, and I think that was again going back to your earlier question. Was one of the things that I really love about football. It just makes you tough, both mentally and physically, and I think
Right.
that translates to everything in life,
Yeah.
especially in your career. So
Yeah.
when things are going wrong, like you got to adapt and overcome. Like things, it's not always going to go your way. Like life is not
Right.
always going to go your way, right? And you've got to be able to adapt and overcome and figure out like you're dealt a hand the cards. All right, how are you going to play it, right?
Right.
And that I think those types of principles that will stick with me forever. They instill within me for a large part. So I'd say that's probably the reason why. Plus, I'm still really good friends with them. So
That's what a blessing that is.
yeah.
Okay. Where do you see yourself or your plans in 10 years?
That's a great question. So I just pivoted from consulting. So if you would have asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have said, running a practice for a large consulting firm or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
Being a partner. I got out of consulting for many reasons. So now I shifted over to the software side as a sales engineer. So probably, hopefully, um, running I'm sure I'll be running a team before then. But running a team and then maybe upper management for a sales engineering organization for some software company in 10 years.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So how do you channel your competitive edge now? What do you do for that?
Golf and tennis.
Okay. All right. Tennis too.
That,
Okay.
yeah, that and still work. Like I still like I'm a very competitive person. So I'm still competitive at work too. Like I want to be the best, right? I want to make sure that we hit our numbers. I want to make sure we blow our numbers out. I want to be the
Right.
best at every metric possible. Not saying that happens, but that's my goal, right?
Right.
So that's my first priority is work.
Okay.
And so when I don't have work, golf is probably number two. I play golf a lot whenever I
Okay.
can. And then tennis, I kind of recently got out of that because both tennis and golf are such hard sports to get good at.
Right.
And if you want to be good at one of those, you got to spend a lot of time. And I just don't have the time to be good at both of them. So golf kind of takes precedence.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's both are in really pretty settings. And
Yeah.
but I would say golf's a little more social
Yeah.
than tennis.
Definitely.
It lasts
Yeah.
a long time. It's
Yeah.
So the goal with golf is as a nugget information. If you want to know if you want to do business or marry somebody, you need to take them golfing on a really hot day. Georgia would be perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And
Absolutely.
see if they cheat. What do they
Yep.
do the whole way around? How do they get mad? It's
Yep.
hard to maintain the cover when, in 5 hours in the heat in Georgia in the summer and a golf course. So yeah,
Yep.
if they quit, what they, all that kind of stuff.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that because I did that to someone who wanted to manage my money.
Right.
They reached out to me and I was like, hey, let's go play golf. And there were a lot of things I noticed about that person where I'm like, yeah, no.
Nice.
So
Nice. Brilliant.
kind of a
I mean,
test.
you're doing incredible stuff. Oh my God. Incredible stuff.
You
Oh
hit the
yeah.
nail on the head. Yep.
Oh yeah. Just like, okay.
You
Yeah.
can tell a lot about a person when they play golf with them.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I really can't thank you enough for your time. This was so insightful. I'm just a little blown away by it. And thank you so much. And until next time, when we have another team meeting, because you're more valuable beyond sports because of sports. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.